A couple of years ago, I had a dream, and there was a very strong line in the dream, and it said, there's nothing wrong with the human species today except one thing, that we've lost the sense of the sacred. So being able to bring the sense of the sacred to our work, to our healing arts, to our breathing, to all our relations, that, it seems to me, is the most radical work we can be about as a species today. And from that flows whole new energy and creativity for compassion, for imagination, for deconstructing the forms of education that we've inherited, the forms of religion, the forms of economics, politics, medicine, all of it. Deconstructing it and reconstructing it. And that, I think, is the agenda at this critical moment in planetary and human history. What is at the heart of a ritual? Melodome Somi, the African spiritual teacher whose specialty is ritual, is living in Oakland, California now, but was raised as a tribal man in West Africa, says that there is no community without ritual. There is no community without ritual. If our species today is going to survive, it's going to have to reconnect to its deepest intuitions and practices of community. And community is not just about human community. It is about a relationship with all the beings of the universe. Our kinship with the creation itself. Or as the Lakota people pray, Ahomatakiyasi, all our relations. All our relations are sacred because all of them have been gifting us for the 15 billion years that we have been in existence. And it is precisely our bodies that are the link between us and the rest of the universe. Consider this, for example. Your body is 60% hydrogen atoms. Hydrogen atoms go back to the original fireball. And that means very simply that your body, 60% of your body is 14 billion years old, which explains why you need a nap now and again. The other 40% of your atoms, nitrogen and sulfur and magnesium and carbon and so forth, go back 5.5 billion years ago. So that's the young part of you. But the point is to recognize that we are not just here as sons and daughters of our parents. Our parents are midwives for a great cosmic process that is who we are. If we run the film of the universe backwards 15 billion years, we find that it all comes back to one point smaller than a zygote, which in fact gave birth to the original fireball. And therefore we are all kin. We are kin to every body in the universe. We share the same elements. This is how big our family is. And this is how we reintroduce praise and wonder and awe into our hearts and into our lives. By getting a sense of the history and the cosmology, the space and the time that have brought us into this amazing universe. You know, we now know that our bodies are light. David Bohm, the physicist, says that matter is frozen light. I would just say matter is very slow-moving light. But in any case, we're made of light. And the food we eat is sunshine, literally. And the drink that we drink is sunlight. And most of the air we breathe is sunlight. So light comes in many forms, but what we know is how unique it is that our bodies exist. Because for every molecule that is matter in the universe, which is embodied light, there are 1 billion molecules of other kinds of light. What that means then is that those of us who are blessed to be bodily in our light are rare. Now this is a shift in awareness. St. Paul, back 2,000 years ago, drawing on his Greek education, said, flesh and blood will not enter the kingdom of heaven. In other words, we put flesh down through the Greek philosophy that made its way very early into Christian theology through Paul, not through Jesus. Jesus never said anything like that. The Jewish understanding was not that flesh was the problem, but flesh has often become the scapegoat, the projection. And we have to wake up to detox ourselves, to cleanse ourselves of that notion. It is a special and rare privilege to have matter and spirit coming together in our beings. And it is precisely the matter and its 15 billion year history that connects us to the whole universe, therefore. Rabbi Abraham Heschel said, "Humanity will perish not from lack of information, but from lack of appreciation." Humanity will perish not from lack of information, but from lack of appreciation. I think that's a very important observation at this time, because we are filling up on a lot of information. This whole computer industry that is literally sustaining our economy at this moment in history, because it is a whole new burgeoning and rapidly expanding industry, is based on information. Now, Heschel is not saying, and the gathering of information, and the connecting of information. Heschel is not saying information is unimportant or useless. He's just saying it's not going to save the human species. The human heart has to be moved by something besides information. And that, my friends, is appreciation or gratitude and its sister, reverence. So the rediscovery of a sense of reverence and gratitude, that is what it means to talk about the sacred and to reconnect with the sacred. As Heschel says, drawing from the Jewish mystical tradition, awe is the beginning of wisdom. Awe is the beginning of wisdom. We have been inundated for several hundred years in the West with knowledge. And we've been on this knowledge quest. That's information. That's not a bad thing in itself, but it's an unbalanced thing if it's not balanced with wisdom. And the wisdom comes through a sense of the whole, a sense of cosmology. Around the world, in all the traditions of the world, wisdom is pictured as feminine. Wisdom sits on a throne, the throne being the center of the universe, where, like an intersection, all things come together, and all things are connected, and compassion rules from that throne. Now, this is the stuff behind celebration and praise. The awareness that we're moving from just knowledge to wisdom. We're moving from facts and information to connecting and relationship and honoring and praising and being grateful for relationship. Marija Gimbutas, the great feminist archaeologist who died a few years ago, wrote in her final book, she said, the essence of the goddess civilization was the celebration of life. The essence of the goddess civilization was the celebration of life. No one can look at the 20th century or the 19th century, the modern era, and say that the essence of this profoundly patriarchal period was the celebration of life. It was not that kind of thing. It was the mining of the earth, the grasping to know and indeed to control. One of the favorite verbs used by the modern philosophers was master, to master our bodies and to master the earth. Well, we have to yield now to this sense of celebration, which is very different from mastering. And praise. Heschel says, praise precedes faith. Praise precedes faith. If we can learn to praise together, we would not be going to war in the name of the ideologies that distinguish our various faith traditions. Just the opposite. We would be expanding the heart through joy and through gratitude. And when you expand the heart through joy and gratitude, you develop a capacity for intuition and creativity and healing. Because part of the expansion of the heart is always growing in vulnerability. Growing in vulnerability. Being able to step into other people's hearts and into other people's wounds because you have paid attention to your own. I think that so much addiction reigns in our culture precisely because we're running from the greatness of our own hearts. We don't feel we have the bigness to deal with the broken heart, with the pain, with the grief that all of us carry in our hearts at this time in history, because there is so much that is being destroyed. We are living at the time of the greatest collapse on this planet of the last 65 million years. Not in 65 million years has been there this amount of collapse of species, 27,000 a year going out of existence, collapse of forests, collapse of soil. We're destroying 26 billion tons of soil every year. And of course the ozone, and of course the shift in weather and climate. All this is going on mostly through the work of our species, the two-legged ones, and in particular Western technological civilization. And so we gather at this moment of a new millennium and a new century around this significant theme of reinventing medicine, the arts of healing of all kinds. We must realize that the planet today is a hospital. Let me say it again. The planet has become a hospital. We can no longer presume the health of the water, of the soil, of the air, of the forest, or of our own bodies. In Russia today, 1 out of 4 babies are being born sick. All this needs to shift. Lester Brown, the World Watch Institute's job it is to gather scientific data from around the world on the health of the planet, says we have 11 years left to change our ways as a species. And if we cannot change our ways as a species in these 11 years, we will not be able to undo the ecological damage that is being rained upon our planet. So, to me, this gives impetus to the theme and the importance of this conference, and indeed the importance of our lives, the choices we make in our lives and in our professions. We all have something to contribute in this next 11 years when our species has to reinvent itself, as Thomas Berry says. We have to reinvent our species. How do you go about reinventing our species? What kind of tools do we have in our collective medicine kits? Ritual is the shortcut, folks. Ritual is the shortcut. And the proof of this can be found in many ways. One way is simply this. Our government, remember, our beloved government, forbade Native Americans to dance the Sundance for over 100 years. It was only under President Carter that Native Americans were allowed to bring all their rituals to the fore again. What does that prove? That the government knew something that a lot of us have never been taught. And that is that ritual is very, very important. Look at those peoples whose existence has been threatened the most. And you'll see they all have something in common. I'm talking about African Americans as sons and daughters of slaves. Talking about the Jewish people, the Holocaust, and many other pogroms in their heritage. Talking about the Celtic people. You check it out. When people are most at the edge of survival and non-survival, you have to travel very light at that stage. They all take ritual with them. Because ritual is a survival mechanism. It's not about putting on your deodorant and your Easter hat and being seen. It is about opening the heart up and growing the heart. Growing it, you grow the heart with joy, first of all. That's how the heart grows, with joy. The heart is made for joy. And that's where praise comes in. Because what is praise? My definition of praise is this. Praise is the noise that joy makes. Praise is the noise that joy makes. And the real joy in our lives, it has to do with our existence itself. The rest, when you think about it, is all details. The essence is existence. And existence has not come easily or lightly. It's taken 15 billion years to make you possible. There's no community without ritual. If our species today is going to survive, it's going to have to reconnect to its deepest intuitions and practices of community. And community is not just about human community. It is about a relationship we've inherited, the forms of religion, the forms of economics, politics, medicine, all of it. Deconstructing it and reconstructing it. And that, I think, is the agenda at this critical moment in planetary and human history. What is at the heart of ritual? Melodome Somi, the African spiritual teacher whose specialty is ritual, is living in Oakland, California now, but was raised as a tribal man in West Africa, says that there is no community without ritual. There's, to our breathing, to all our relations, that, it seems to me, is the most radical work we can be about as a species today. And from that flows whole new energy and creativity for compassion, for imagination, for deconstructing the forms of education. A couple of years ago, I had a dream, and there was a very strong line in the dream, and it said, there's nothing wrong with the human species today except one thing, that we've lost the sense of the sacred. So being able to bring the sense of the sacred to our work, to our healing arts,